Hello and welcome to this May 13th, 2020 edition of Let's Do Lunch, a devotional ministry of First United Methodist Church in West Monroe, Louisiana. I am Lamar Oliver, pastor of First United Methodist Church, and I cannot thank you enough for joining us for this sacred time. It is our hope and prayer that these few minutes of coming up for air in these days of anxiety and uncertainty will bless you and renew your spirit. My dear friend, mentor, and colleague Weldon Barres told me over 20 years ago that one of the keys to the life of a preacher is to do long-term planning when it comes to sermon prep. By looking ahead, it helps form your thinking and preaching as you start looking at life through those lenses, and it helps you become more comfortable in the pulpit. In the intervening years, I have also come to appreciate it because the pressure is not on each week. I bring this up because in light of all the disruptions of life since mid-March, as I announced to our congregation via email yesterday, our planned series for this summer is being scrapped for some more timely subjects. For example, July of this year will feature a series called Freedom. It involves far more than meets the eye. Our society at large is having to wrestle with this concept of freedom in light of not only the various stay-at-home orders, but also guidelines and regulations in place as our public health officials work to provide us helpful guidance on these matters. Good men and women of the Christian faith have been passionate about freedom in these conversations, and I think it is a good thing, for ours is a land in which, baked into our Constitution, is the right of freedom of religion. Scripture speaks in more than a couple of places about freedom in the life of the believer, and it is a little confusion in the eyes of one of Christ's followers that I want to reflect upon briefly today. Here are these words from the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verses 31 through 36. Then Jesus said to the Jews who had believed him, "If you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." They answered him, "We are descendants of Abraham and have never been slaves to anyone. What do you mean by saying you will be made free?" Jesus answered them, "Very truly I tell you, everyone who commits sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not have a permanent place in the household. The son has a place there forever. So if the Son makes you free, you will be free indeed." May God add divine blessing to the reading and hearing of this sacred word. Time constraints do not allow me to dive very deeply into the context of this passage, but allow me to note these words come after Jesus foretells his death and talks about how he is not doing things on his own, but in concert with his Father. This matters because he then pivots to the role of the disciple in Jesus' ministry. Just as Jesus talks about being with the Father, he talks about our continued necessity to be in Jesus' word, for it is then we are disciples. Many times, the next part of this saying is ripped way out of context. You will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Understanding that all of Scripture is to be read in context, we must remember Jesus' self-description: "I am the way, the truth, and the life." As was often the case when Jesus had an audience, he got some pushback. Thinking in terms of political stuff, like many good men and women of the Christian faith in the United States, they say to him, "We have never been slaves to anyone. What do you mean by being made free?" In a land where we have a death grip on the idea of freedom in a political sense, we, too, could be quite easily forgiven for making such a claim. Yet, as usual, Jesus is playing on a whole different level than those with whom he is talking. He directs them to an understanding of slavery through the lens of sin. He's getting to the point where he turns the situation around and has them looking introspectively to see what has control over them. He's getting to the age-old question of motivation. What motivates our thoughts, words, and deeds? In other words, can it be said that we are in the midst of living in response to God's grace, or in reaction to living a life focused anywhere else? I've long believed that one can examine their checkbook and their calendar to find their priorities. And now, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the good Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the good Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you his peace. One last thing before we go. Please visit our YouTube channel, fumcwm.live, and hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our video content. And if you would like, also hit the notifications bell so you will know the second we upload new content. My friends, never forget, you are a blessing. Be blessed.